Hello, and welcome to the Amicitia Duo's Play Pretty series, episode 5. My name is Diane Barger, and I am professor of clarinet at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
And I'm Denise Gainey, and I'm professor of clarinet at the University of Alabama at Birmingham.
And together we are the Amicitia Duo.
Today in this video, we're going to discuss the proper assembly of the instrument and the care of the instrument. And I'm going to start with the assembly part. And I'll be talking as if we're going to talk to beginners at the very beginning here. So we want to stress the importance of care required in assembling to prevent repairs due to bent mechanisms. Nothing is more frustrating to a young student or to the band director when an instrument has issues and needs to be repaired, causing the student to get behind because they're not able to play with the rest of the class. We want to make sure starting out that students open the case with latches up, because that's one of the first things that we see. Students will dump an instrument out of the case simply because they don't know the right way to open it. And that causes disaster from the very beginning, right? Typically, again, latches will open up. We want to make sure that you familiarize students with the case arrangement. So having them know where every part goes correctly, making sure that as they close the case that the tone holes are up, and they're not trying to force the case down on parts not correctly put into the case. Also, identify all the contents that they're going to find. They've got cork grease, a swab, etc. And then name each section of the instrument: the bell, the lower joint, the upper joint, the barrel, the mouthpiece, the ligature, and the reed. Much of the terminology will be new to young students, and we want to make sure that they understand it. When we start with the sequence of assembly, it's very important to develop a routine, consistent routine that they do all the time and reinforce it with them so that they are developing a muscle memory of how to do this correctly to protect the instrument. I had a teacher once say to treat a clarinet like it was mechanized jewelry. It's very expensive and you've got to be very careful with it. So starting from the bottom, we always build from the bottom up when we're assembling. Take the bell in the left hand, and again, you want to be I'm sure that you're telling them which hand to use. So the bell in the left hand, and then I'm going to take the lower joint in my right hand with my fingers over the keys. So I'm able to get a good grip of the instrument, but I'm not having to press down any keys or bend anything. And before we start any of this, I should say we always want to check the corks. Especially beginners with new instruments, the corks will be expanded a little bit before they contract with use. They're going to need a little more cork grease. So you want to make sure that each section is, before you even begin the assembly process, that you check the corks on everything. Not too much cork grease, but just enough to keep it where they're not having to force. If we ever hear the dreaded sound when they assemble, that's not good. Mr. Opperman used to say, cork grease is in vogue, use it. So we want to use it. So again, I'll start back here with the left hand on the bell, right hand on the lower joint. Once I've gotten these two parts together, I'm going to move down and hold from the bell and lower joint. This way I can keep a good grip of the instrument without grabbing onto the keywork as I assemble the upper joint. And with this, I'm going to lay the upper joint in the palm of my hand, and I'm going to depress the key so I'm raising the bridge key. All right, and this is important in protecting the connecting mechanism between the two parts. So I'm going to depress that and then carefully put the instrument together. We want to think about a real gentle twisting motion, not ever forcing in. And it's a good idea. If you look carefully at a cork, you can see the direction in which it's wrapped. And if you can always try to be aware of that and turn in the direction that the cork is wrapped, you'll prevent wear over time and the corks will last longer. So just something to think about.
That's a good tip.
Well, thank you. And with this one, once I've got the upper joint, I'm going to always hold the joint below the one I'm connecting. I'm now going to come up and take the barrel in my right hand, leaving my fingers on the keys here. I'm letting my thumb stay up, so I'm not grabbing around the trill keys. That's a surefire way to get a leak in an instrument, to bend a key. So reminding them to let their fingers just go straight up. At first, they're going to be very afraid of the instrument and sometimes heavy-handed. So just really keeping, the proper where to hold it so they're not going to damage it. Once this is done, I'm going to take the barrel, again, I said that, and then comes the mouthpiece. And with the mouthpiece, we want to make sure and adjust the reed so that it is aligned, I should say the window of the mouthpiece before the reed is on, is aligned with the register key. And it's a register key, not an octave key, band directors, okay? Sorry. And then once that happens, I'm going to place the reed first, right? And if you're using cane reeds, you want to make sure that the reed has been soaked on both sides. So not just the tip of the reed, but you also want to get the butt of the reed to be moistened as well. And then place it carefully so that you're balancing it on the facing or this window of the table of the mouthpiece here, and line it so that the tip comes just below the tip of the mouthpiece. You don't want to be above and you want to be too far down below. You'll have a big impact in the sound if you do that, right? Sometimes not a good way. And then you're going to place the ligature last. And the ligature should always go right below where the bark begins on the reed. All right, and then as you tighten it, you want to make sure that it's firm, but not cranked down tremendously, because you're just, you don't want anything to squeeze against the reed. You're just trying to firmly keep it in place. And that is going to be the basic assembly of the instrument. So Diane, I'll let you go from there.
All right. So, in terms of some basic maintenance tips, Denise said about using cork grease, but just make sure you actually blend it into the cork. Okay. And the other thing, don't use excessive amount. And then you also want to make sure to clean the corks and tenons in between your playing. And you don't want to use and so we want to also clean inside here as well. You'd be amazed, and also in around in here. You'd be amazed how much stuff, cork grease, things like that, accumulate in those sockets if you don't carefully eliminate that.
And
But you
Diane,
don't, yes, go ahead.
to say with the corks, Maury Baccoon says to use makeup wipes. So that's a great way to clean them.
And you can get those makeup wipes that don't have any fragrance or anything to them, to be, careful. Because you definitely don't want to use your swab for this, because you don't want to get gunk on your swab. So always make sure you use makeup wipes. I use Q-tips actually to get the stuff off here. Always swab out your clarinet and its individual pieces after playing and during rehearsals and during practice sessions. Again, make sure to wipe the tenons and the socket joints thoroughly with something other than your swab, because we need to keep the moisture out of the instrument. So if you have a wooden clarinet, so it is not susceptible to cracking. If you have a new wooden instrument, it's especially important that you swab out your instrument every 25-30 minutes, and including the sockets, just to eliminate that moisture. The other thing, another fun little trick that I like to do, and so many people, by the way, like to just, so many young people like to just swab out the entire instrument as it's together. I also swab out the individual pieces when I'm putting it back. And it's especially this top joint that we get a lot of moisture trapped in the tone holes. So a fun little trick is you can plug up the bottom of it here, finger a low C, and then you basically blow into that. Nothing's going to come out if your clarinet is sealing well. And then you basically open up all these joints, all these side keys. You do that and you will be amazed. Try not to, hey, Denise, because you're going to get it on somebody. You'll be amazed at what's hidden there that a swab won't get out. And then put your swab through it again. And that'll be awesome. After you're done and you're putting your your instrument away, wipe the keys off with a nice microfiber cloth that's specifically made for that purpose, that you're not going to use to clean the corks or anything like that. Another really good tip, and this is probably it's important for all of us, but I see young students doing this all the time. They place their wet swab in the instrument case. If you can avoid doing that, or they do this, they fold it up. Yeah, that swab needs to dry out. So, basic hygiene, folks, right? So if you can keep that swab outside of the case in between practice sessions, and maybe actually have, Denise and I probably have 20 swabs each, and we rotate and we have different swabs, so we don't keep on just having one swab that just keeps maintaining all that moisture. Okay. Make sure that the end of your swab is not jagged in any way. We don't want anything going into the inside of the instrument that's going to scratch it or damage it in any way. Okay. Um, there are also some bulky swabs out on the market. I tend to really like the silk swabs, and they're nice and long. But just make sure that when you're putting it into the instrument, it's not like this, but that you have it extended, because any kind of bulk, it's very possible that it could get stuck behind the register tube on that upper joint. So you want to be really careful of that. If it does get stuck, don't just yank it. You can use something to or take it to a repair person if you're a little too paranoid um, about that. If you see any loose corks or torn pads, be sure to go to a qualified repair person to get that fixed as soon as possible, because especially torn pads, those will greatly affect the sound and make buzzing noise when you play. And loose corks, of course, will be extremely problematic. Also, watch for loose tenon rings. Okay, these rings that go here and on your barrel. Okay, if you can easily twist that, that's not good, and that could again cause the wood to crack. And again, a qualified repair person can easily fix this for you. I mentioned Q-tips before. That's a great way to clean out the tone holes, okay, as well as the gunk here. Now, granted, you don't, if you are cleaning out some gunk here and you see gunk, don't put it in your tone holes. Use the different side of the Q-tip or use several Q-tips. Okay. And also buy a soft bristled art brush, and that can help you clean out any dust and debris between the rings and the key work. Okay. You can clean your mouthpiece. I personally don't run a swab through it, although there are many mouthpiece craftsmen who say, of course, you can do that as long as you're very careful. But I use a Q-tip and some water lemon juice mixture if I really want to do a weekly cleaning. When I finish for a practice session, I will take the end of my swab and try to wipe off excess moisture. I for sure look for calcium deposits. The white stuff that you see on the top of your mouthpiece, some students get it on the table of the mouthpiece. That is really dangerous for the mouthpiece, especially if it's getting near the table, because boy, your reed will not play if you get calcium buildup. So you really want to make sure you clean that calcium buildup off of your mouthpiece on a daily basis. Okay. Also, keep a reed, one that you're never going to use to play on your mouthpiece when you put the instrument away. This allows you to keep your ligature securely on the mouthpiece with a mouthpiece cap on it, in your case, while it's not being used. Okay, and it just keeps the table safe. And then last but not least, send your instrument to a qualified repair person once a year, or every year and a half for proper maintenance. It's like if you don't take your car and get the oil change, you're going to have problems. Same thing with our instruments. Do you have anything else to add, Denise?
I don't, one thing that I see that's sometimes students will bring in, and I don't know what the name of them are, but those things that look like bristly brushes
Those
that the
pad savers.
pad savers, they're not pad savers. Please don't use those, because you're just keeping moisture inside the instrument. We want everything to get out of there. So if that comes, you use a swab, use a microfiber or silk swab, please. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, that's it for this video. So make sure to visit our Amicitia Duo website at theamicitiaduo.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
And if you'd like to contact us about a future video subject you'd like for us to address, or you want to request a virtual masterclass with us via Zoom, please email us at theamicitiaduo@gmail.com. Play pretty.
Play pretty.